There was a time when the sound of a screen door closing meant someone was about to sit down and stay a while. And if you listen closely, you can still hear the echo of that word calling you back. Picture a quiet evening where the sun melts into the horizon, and the golden light stretches across a row of small front porches, each one holding a story, a laugh, and a comforting certainty that you belong somewhere beyond your own walls. This is not just nostalgia speaking, it is a reminder of a truth many of us quietly feel but rarely name. You were never designed to live life entirely alone. Somewhere along the way the fences grew taller, the doors stayed shut longer, and the glow of televisions replaced the glow of shared conversations. Yet deep inside, the human heart still leans toward connection, the way flowers lean toward sunlight. That quiet ache you sometimes feel in the evening, that sense that something is missing even when everything seems fine, is not weakness. It is memory, it is instinct, it is the echo of neighbors who once felt like family. Dr. Grandpa Henry often spoke about how the simplest rituals of everyday life once acted as invisible threads that held communities together. A wave from across the yard was never just a wave. A borrowed cup of sugar was never just sugar. A front porch was never just wood and nails. These small gestures formed the quiet language of trust, a language we understood without needing to speak. Today, many people can live in the same place for years without ever learning the name of the person next door. And the silence between houses has grown louder than the laughter that once filled the streets. We tell ourselves we are busy. We tell ourselves the world has changed. And we convince ourselves that independence is strength. But what if that independence has slowly turned into isolation without us even noticing? Here is the unsettling question that lingers in the middle of all this. What if we traded for convenience? When you stop and really think about it, the shift did not happen overnight. It happened in small, almost invisible steps. The garage door replaced the front walk. The text message replaced the knock on the door. The endless scroll replaced the evening stroll. Each change felt harmless on its own, yet together they quietly reshaped the way we live. And now, many people sit in beautiful homes filled with modern comforts, while feeling a loneliness they cannot quite explain. The silence feels normal, because it has been normal for so long. And that is what makes it so powerful, and so dangerous. The greatest losses in life rarely arrive with noise. They arrive quietly, disguised as progress, until one day we realize something meaningful has slipped away, and we cannot remember exactly when it left. But here is the hopeful truth. Hiding beneath a worry, anything built through small habits can be rebuilt through small habits. The same gentle actions that once created strong neighborhoods have never disappeared. They've simply been waiting for someone to begin again. The front porch is still there. The sidewalk still leads somewhere. The human need for connection has not faded, no matter how modern the world becomes. And maybe, just maybe, the story of neighbors becoming family again does not require a grand movement or a dramatic change. Maybe it begins with a single moment, a single hello, a single decision to open the door and step outside. The most powerful changes in life often begin in ways that feel almost too small to matter, which is why so many people overlook them entirely. Imagine standing at your front window one evening, watching the quiet street as the sky slowly darkens, and realizing that every house you see contains a life just as complicated and hopeful as your own. Behind every closed door are stories of stress, celebration, worry, and quiet dreams waiting for someone to notice they exist. This realization can feel both comforting and unsettling at the same time, because it reminds us that the distance between strangers is often measured in moments, rather than miles. Dr. Grandpa Henry believed that the turning point for rebuilding community begins the moment we stop assuming that connection must be complicated. The truth is that the world has convinced many of us that meaningful relationships require perfect timing, perfect words, or perfect confidence. But real connection has never asked for perfection. It has only ever asked for presence. Yet this is where the quiet tension begins to grow. Most people genuinely want deeper connections, but fear whispers a list of reasons to remain inside. What if they think it is strange to say hello? What if they are too busy? What if a moment feels awkward? These thoughts appear small, but they carry enormous weight because they keep doors closed and sidewalks empty. Over time, hesitation becomes habit, and habit becomes lifestyle. Suddenly years pass, and the idea of introducing yourself to the person next door feels more intimidating than any major life decision. This is the silent suspense that modern life has created. The more isolated we become, the more intimidating connection seems. Even though it is the very thing we crave, it is a strange paradox where the cure feels scarier than the problem, and the longer we wait, the harder the first step appears. But something remarkable happens when one person decides to move first. The smallest action has a ripple effect that spreads farther than we expect. A simple greeting can turn into a short conversation. A short conversation can turn into recognition. Recognition can turn into trust. And trust, once planted, begins to grow roots that quietly transform the entire environment. Streets begin to feel warmer. Evenings begin to feel less lonely. The invisible wall between houses begins to soften. This is not a fantasy or a romanticized past. It is a pattern that is repeated throughout human history whenever people choose courage over comfort. The idea that community is gone forever is a myth created by inaction. Community is not a place you find, it is a place you create. The deeper truth is that rebuilding connection is not about grand gestures or dramatic social events. It is about consistency. It is about choosing, again and again, to acknowledge the humanity that exists just beyond your doorstep. A wave today becomes a conversation tomorrow. A shared laugh becomes a shared story. And slowly, almost without noticing, the environment begins to change. The street that once felt silent begins to feel alive again. The distance that once felt permanent begins to feel temporary. And in those small, steady moments, the foundation of something powerful begins to return. The beautiful part of this journey is that it does not demand perfection, charisma, or a dramatic personality. It only asks for intention repeated over time. When people hear the idea of rebuilding neighborhood connections, they often imagine block parties, big events, or elaborate plans, yet the real transformation happens quietly in the background of ordinary days. It shows up in the habit of spending a few extra minutes outside instead of rushing back in. It appears in the choice to make eye contact, to smile, and to treat familiarity as something worth nurturing rather than avoiding. These moments feel simple while they are happening, but they accumulate into something far greater than the sum of their parts. Dr. Grandpa Henry often described community as a living garden that grows wherever attention is given and withers wherever attention disappears. The soil has never stopped being fertile. It has only been waiting for someone to start planting again. As these small actions repeat, a subtle but powerful shift begins to unfold. The street that once felt like a collection of separate lives slowly begins to feel like a shared story. Children laugh louder when they feel safe. Evenings feel warmer when familiar faces pass by. Problems feel smaller when you know someone nearby would notice if you needed help. This transformation does not arrive with a dramatic announcement. It arrives quietly, almost unnoticed, until one day you realize that the silence that once filled the neighborhood has been replaced by the gentle hum of belonging. The fear that once whispered reasons to stay inside grows quieter, and in its place comes a sense of reassurance that is difficult to explain, but impossible to ignore. Human beings are not meant to carry life entirely on their own shoulders, and when that invisible weight begins to lift, everything feels a little lighter. The most inspiring truth is that the return of connection does not depend on everyone changing at once. It only requires a few people choosing courage, kindness, and consistency long enough for others to feel safe doing the same. Momentum begins slowly, then gathers strength, and eventually becomes a new normal. What once felt unusual begins to feel natural again. What once felt risky begins to feel comforting. Over time, the simple act of knowing your neighbors becomes something you cannot imagine living without. And in that realization lies the quiet triumph of reclaiming something deeply human that was never truly lost, only forgotten. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.